socially, physically, and in many other ways. And it is also true that they require some assistance, they require help. And the society must provide it. At the same time, the point that we would like to make is, why should it be at the expense of something like a temple, which also fulfills a very important need in the society, and that is a spiritual need. There are physical needs, mental and emotional needs, social needs, but there are also spiritual needs. From the scriptures, we understand that the spiritual need is the most fundamental need. And if this is not fulfilled, then one will not be happy, no matter to what degree the other needs are fulfilled. One may have a lot of money, one may have prestige in the society, one may have lots of friends, etc. But still, until this one very vital need is fulfilled, the perfection of human life cannot be attained. So the temples are meant to be places of spiritual education. They are meant to be places where people of a spiritual inclination congregate together and help each other to progress on the spiritual path. Just as you have a stockbrokers association, or you have a construction agents or an architects association. So you have association of various kinds of people who are like-minded, who gather together to further their own interests. It is natural. So similarly, people who have a spiritual bent of mind, who understand that attaining spiritual perfection is very, very important in life. It is the key to ultimate happiness and success. They would like to have places where they can come, where they can gather, where they can learn about spiritual life. And one may protest again and say that, well, what is the need to have a temple for that? One can just meet in a hall. Indeed, one can, and this does happen at many places. However, as the activities grow, one outgrows that small place. The hall is no longer sufficient, and one needs more and more facility. The more the number of people who come forward to participate, the greater the need for increased facilities, for increased organization, etc. And sooner or later, the time comes where every spiritual gathering of this sort feels the need to have some very firm establishment where a large number of people can congregate together. Not just those who are steadily practicing, who are regular practitioners, but also there are people at large outside who may not know about such a small gathering happening in a small hall. But when you have a big establishment, then it becomes well known, and people will come and participate in the programs, or at least have some kind of a contact with spiritual life. Undoubtedly, building a big temple involves so much of money, organization, hard work, to build it and even to construct it and then eventually to maintain it. But once done, then it is there for many, many years. It is a place of education. Srila Prabhupada, the founder Acharya of our International Society for Krishna Consciousness, ISKCON, used to say that our temples must be places of spiritual education. He would say actually there are many temples all over, especially in India. There is a temple at every street practically, small temple, big temple. And many of these temples are such where people just go, offer their respects, maybe offer a few prayers, and then come away, which is all right. But the point is the purpose of a temple is fulfilled only when there is full education, when there are good instructions given to people about spiritual life. They should get spiritual knowledge in a very systematic way. They should get inspiration to move ahead on the spiritual path. Because the world outside is not at all conducive for spiritual development. The current of the world is completely opposed to the way of spiritual life. So, when people gather together for a purpose, there is strength in that. So people who are living in the outside world, who have to deal with the challenges of the world outside, need to come to a place time to time where they can meet other people who are also similarly inspired and engaged, so that they can also feel that strength to go ahead on the spiritual path despite so many challenges that life brings up. The temples are also places where the Lord actually manifests in the form of the deity. Many people say, well, God is everywhere, so why should we go to the temple? And indeed, God is everywhere, but the point is, do we have the eyes to see God everywhere? If we do not have the eyes to see God everywhere, then a temple is necessary for us. If someone can see God everywhere and the person has attained such a stage of spiritual perfection, then that person doesn't need to go to a temple. But nevertheless, even such a person will still go for the sake of setting an example to the rest of the society, and also for the sake of instructing others to move ahead on this path. Srila Prabhupada would say that when people argue that God is everywhere, so why should we go to a temple? Prabhupada would say, well, indeed, if God is everywhere, is he not in the temple also? He's also in the temple, so you should come to the temple. So the temple is a place where Lord Krishna manifests himself in a form, in a way that we can all perceive with our ordinary senses. We can see him with these ordinary eyes. Otherwise, normally it is not possible to see Krishna, to see God. For that we need spiritual eyes. We need to be completely spiritually self-realized. But what then of ordinary people like us? So when we go to the temple, we see the deity of the Lord, which is the same as the Lord himself. It is identical. So we are able to see the beautiful form with our eyes. We are able to smell the flowers and the incense offered there. We are able to hear with our ears the kirtans, the bhajans, the songs that are sung in glorification of the Lord. We are able to hear the messages from the Bhagavad Gita and Srimad Bhagavatam. We are able to offer so many other types of services to the Lord. Even if it means we just bring a flower to offer to the Lord whenever we visit the temple. So having a temple gives an opportunity for ordinary people living in this world to offer their seva, to offer their service to Lord Krishna. And they engage in a variety of such services because of the very favorable atmosphere that is created by the presence of a temple. And it is by such service that automatically one's heart gets cleansed and one develops a higher spiritual vision. Ataha Shri Krishna Namadi na bhavet grahyamendriyahi sevon mukhehi jivvado svayam eva spurat yadaha. So the scriptures explain that ordinarily we cannot perceive anything about Lord Krishna with our senses. We cannot understand Krishna's form, his name, his abode, etc. Very difficult to understand with these material senses. However, when we engage these very senses in the service of the Lord, the eyes for seeing, the ears for hearing about him, the nose for smelling the flowers offered to him, the tongue for tasting the prasad that has been offered to him, etc., then our senses and mind get purified. When the mind is purified, then gradually the spiritual senses are awakened. And with these spiritual senses, then we are actually able to perceive the Lord. That is the stage when we can say, yes, now I have realized that God is everywhere, God is in my heart, He is in every atom, etc. So temples also serve the purpose of being a place where certain cultural programs can happen. There is a need for people to perform very vital cultural engagements. Traditionally in India, people like to get married in temples. People like to perform their sanskaras and other things in temples. So if there is no temple, it becomes a little difficult to do all these things. Performing these samskaras and functions in a temple atmosphere, which is pure, holy, devotional, makes a big impact on the people participating there and even on the guests. It imparts a certain sanctity, a sacredness to the act. So therefore the temples perform many, many vital functions in the society. So why should one simply protest that money is being spent for temples, when actually money is also being spent in huge quantities for many, many other purposes. For example, for building huge stadiums for sports, for building so many other multi-storied skyscrapers for some business purposes, or building some gigantic homes for some wealthy persons, even for the president of a country or the governor of a country. So we spend so much money on so many other things. And the argument may be that, well, we spend it because it is required. Because there are people in this world who need recreation, so we need cinema halls, we need sporting stadiums. Of course, at the end of the day, it is debatable whether a spiritually conscious society really needs all of these things. But nevertheless, even if we grant that it is required, then is not the spiritual need, the religious need also vital? And should it not also therefore be fulfilled and facilitated? So therefore we need these temples. It is said in the Srimad Bhagavatam that the temples or the deities of the Lord can be constructed of a variety of substances. Deities can be made of stone, deities can be made of metal, deities can be made of clay or mud, deities can be made of sand, of jewels, of paint, of rocks. They can even be made in the mind. They can be made of paint also. So deities can be made of various substances. So even one who is thinking of the Lord actually is like a temple. But nevertheless, it is easiest to have a deity that is made of some substance, like stone or wood, metal, etc. So this makes it very easy for the ordinary person to come and relate to the Lord. And as the people come and relate to the Lord, they develop a sense of service and a personal relationship with the Lord, which is a little difficult for the uninitiated, for those who are not acquainted with the devotional philosophy. It is very hard to develop a kind of attachment for the Lord, a kind of personal relationship with the Lord. But when you have a temple with deities, and you every day come and take darshan, and they are beautifully decorated and dressed, then naturally we develop a certain personal rapport, a personal relationship with the deities. We become very attached to the deities. That is the nature of worship of the deities. In our temple in Vrindavan, our deities are so beautiful. Srila Prabhupada one time gave an instruction that nobody who is living within the temple campus should have their own private deities. Why is that? Because when they start serving their private deities, they will get very attached to them. They will start loving them a lot, and therefore they will start probably neglecting the temple's deities. But Srila Prabhupada wanted the temple's deities to be of primary importance. So in any case, we develop this love for the Lord, this personal relationship, by regularly serving the deity. Even by offering some small offering, or for those who come and regularly serve in some way, like performing arati, etc. This is another benefit of the temple. One time, when Srila Prabhupada was in the West, and he had acquired lots of properties. Some were castles, some were old churches, and they were either donated to him or they had bought them at a reasonable price. And since temples were happening, like we said, being opened at various places, and sometimes there were big castles. So one time a press reporter asked Srila Prabhupada that, can't you worship your God sitting under a tree or just sitting in a small place? Why do you need a castle, a big building like this to worship? So Srila Prabhupada said that personally for me, I am very happy even sitting under a tree. He said, I was very happy in Vrindavan, the holy land of Lord Krishna. And I was in 2 rooms in Radha Damodar temple. I would go and bathe in the river, holy river Yamuna. I would take darshan of the deities of Radha Damodar and the other temples. I was in the most sacred of the pastime places of Lord Krishna in Vrindavan. I was there busy chanting and reading and writing. I was very happy there. So personally for me, I just had 2 small rooms. I did not need anything more. And even today, if I sit under a tree and I'm happy, I don't need a big castle. But then Srila Prabhupada told the reporter, but if I had been merely sitting under a tree, then would you have come to talk to me? It is only because there is this huge castle which is now being converted into a temple, then now you are coming forward because you are attracted by the opulence of such a building. So when there is some big structure, naturally people are inclined to come there. That is a human nature. So you are coming here because we have such a grand facility. If I was simply sitting in some corner doing something quietly, you wouldn't have come. So my purpose is not to provide facilities for myself and for those who are going to stay in the temple. We need only very simple facility, very basic facility. But we need something grand to attract people here. And that is a fact. That every structure, they design it in such a way that it will be attractive to people at large. So many architectural, archaeological monuments we see have been designed to make them look attractive so that people will come. So similarly, temples were also designed in a certain way, of a certain size, to attract people to come to them. Because people are generally so involved in their worldly affairs that they have no time or no inclination to come to temples. But when they see a very grand temple there, and lots of people going there, so then they somehow feel inspired to go. Even if they go just for a social outing, somehow or the other, at least they come into a temple. Then gradually by coming to the temple, by taking darshan, by hearing some things from the devotees, rendering some seva, they become more inclined, they become more serious in their spiritual life. There are many people who become very serious spiritual practitioners later. Initially they come just because it's the temple and they just want to come as a ritual, or just like that once in a while they want to come because they feel good about it. But gradually they become more serious and they take to spiritual processes very, very seriously. So therefore such temples are required to attract the people of the world, so that everyone can realize that this is the prime necessity of human life. Temples are not a luxury. Temples are a necessity, provided the temples fulfill the true purpose for which they are intended. If a temple is created or constructed and there is no education there to the people at large on spiritual matters, if there is no genuine worship and seva going on of the Lord there, if there are activities contrary to spiritual principles that happen there, then that is not good. That is why people actually protest when we speak about building of temples, because they have some bad experience. And indeed in this world sometimes we do see bad experiences. It happens often. But that doesn't mean that we can throw the baby out with the bathwater. So we should establish genuine temples, which will be places of spiritual renaissance, spiritual transformation for the society at large. And this can be the hub around which many other smaller groups can meet at other places. Smaller halls can be there, smaller gatherings can be there, and they all gather together eventually for big days like festivals. If we have only a small hall, yes, you can also do festivals there, but it's very limited. How many people can you accommodate for a small festival? But when you have a big temple, then thousands of people can come together and have a joyous celebration. In this way, the whole atmosphere in the city can become spiritualized. It becomes blissful everywhere. It sends out a very important message to the society that such festivals are very, very important in human society. They fulfill this most crucial need. When Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu went to Vrindavan, he discovered many of the pastime places of Lord Krishna. He instructed his dear disciples, the 6 Goswamis, led by Srila Rupa Goswami and Sanatan Goswami, and he gave them some instructions. He said, you go to Vrindavan and find out the places where Lord Krishna performed certain pastimes. Now those places had been lost to the world because 4,500 years had elapsed. When Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu went to Vrindavan, 4,500 years had elapsed since the appearance of Lord Krishna in Vrindavan. So a lot of things disappear in 4,500 years. So he told the Goswamis, excavate the lost pastime places of Lord Krishna. The second instruction he gave them was, you study all the Vedic scriptures and extract the essence of the devotional conclusions. You establish very clearly, based on scriptural knowledge, that the devotional service to Lord Krishna, the path of bhakti, is the topmost and sublime process for spiritual perfection and for happiness and success in life. Third, he told them, study all the various literatures, the Vedic literature, the devotional literatures in particular, and establish for the welfare of the devotees of the Lord a kind of a code of conduct, a manual that will explain to devotees how they should live, how they should eat, how they should sleep, how they should worship, how they should deal with each other, how they should dress, how they should behave, how they should conduct various types of festivals and ceremonies. And everything the devotee of the Lord would need to know, compile systematically authentic literatures on this topic. And finally, the fourth instruction that Mahaprabhu gave the 6 Goswamis was that you should establish temples and deities and have worship going on there and establish to the world, show to the world how the deities are to be worshipped and what a genuine temple is, so that people will come from far and wide to take darshan and gain spiritual knowledge and inspiration. Of course, the existence of temples has been there in the Vedic culture since time immemorial. It's not a new phenomenon. But at the time when Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu went to Vrindavan, there was only forest over there. Soon after Lord Krishna's disappearance, about 5,000 years ago, his great-grandson, whose name was Vajranab, he had many deities carved. It is said about 16 various types of deities. And then he had them installed. But in course of time, somehow or the other, the temples did not remain, and the deities also somehow were not known where they were. It was not known where the deities were. So now when Chaitanya Mahaprabhu came, he told his associates to somehow revive this culture in Vrindavan. And it was only after Chaitanya Mahaprabhu's instructions to the Goswamis there that one by one the deities started revealing their presence in various places. Some were buried under the ground somewhere, some were in some other place. Somehow they manifested themselves again. And then one after the other the temples started getting built in Vrindavan. And just in the course of a century or so, several big temples were established. The 7 main temples called Sapta Devalaya, starting with Madan Mohan Temple and Govindaji Temple, etc. And then gradually other temples also began to be constructed there. And very soon, Vrindavan was a thriving pilgrimage place. Many, many pastime places of Lord Krishna had been excavated. Many temples had been constructed. And the story of each of these temples is wonderful. It is very, very heartwarming and inspirational to hear these stories of how the Lord arranged through His pure devotees that these temples would be built. And even though these temples were destroyed later in good measure by the Mughal rulers, nevertheless the deities were somehow or the other preserved. They were transferred to Rajasthan, where the Rajput kings, who were great devotees of Lord Krishna, would protect them. So even today we find these ancient temples there in Vrindavan. So having and devotees of Lord Krishna, when they go to Vrindavan, they visit all these different temples. So as the years go by, centuries roll by, a day will probably come when some of our temples will also be heritage places. Devotees will come from far and wide and say, yes, here is a temple in Sydney, in Melbourne, in Perth, in various places where just a few decades ago it would have been unimaginable to think of temples in such places of this scale or this magnitude. So therefore temples in general perform a very important role for the society, and Srila Prabhupada wanted such temples to be focal points of devotees and faithful people coming and gathering for Krishna consciousness. So you're all participating here, serving in many ways to make this dream of temples come true. So I would like to offer my heartfelt greetings, good wishes and congratulations to all of you, and especially to the team that is leading the fundraising, Vijay Gopikesh Prabhu, and the team, the steering committee, and all the other devotees who are associated with it in some way or the other, and especially also those who are offering their hard-earned money as donations for the construction of this temple in future. So my good wishes and gratitude and congratulations to all of you. Thank you very much. Srila Prabhupada ki jai. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna.